This is a play brimming with folklore and tradition, but the familiar themes of motherhood, marriage and family crop up yet again.
Did you hear about Margie Brocky? Buckled up with Jamie Moody. Buckled up at Coldstream Brig. Ca' that a wedding.
It's legal.
The minister wouldn't say so. Folk should marry in kirk with the full connivance of the Almighty. A lad and a lass walk into an inn and someone says, "Where's the lass then?" And the lad says, "Oh, she's my wife." Ca' that a wedding.
Well, it's legal.
It's a scandal.
It's cheaper that way. Kirk weddings cost. No wonder folk ran off to Coldstream under Highlands, after the fair, or after the cairn. We were hand-fasted, Patty and me. We lived together as man and wife for about a year, just to see how we would take it.
Hand-fasting, and we's left holding the bairn.
Well, that's what they're waiting for as often as not, to see if there's a bairn. It's the babby leads them to the kirk, eventually.
Or sends the man fleeing to Canada, for instance.
Patty loved the babby. Oh, she was a queer bit babby. All wheezy and choky, but he loved her just the same, and you mustn't say he didn't. She was ours.
Getting buckled up at Coldstream is just, okay, it's a particular place like Gretna Green is, but the custom of getting buckled up, just deciding to be married, as it were, and living together, and not having to go to the church and get banns read and everything, is a very time-honoured Scottish custom, which I think might have been dying away slightly. It was just an oddity, although it was still legal if you were married by habit and repute. You could legally claim a partner's goods and chattels in court if he or she had died. But it's quite modern now. I mean, it's up to the minute now. It's what everybody everywhere else is doing now. You don't get married unless you particularly want to, and it's much cheaper not to actually go and have a church wedding. That's how the people in rural Scotland always thought. They didn't want to get married. It was expensive. I think also there was a very robust country view that it might not be a terribly good idea to get married until you proved that your relationship was fecund and that the wife or partner was actually going to produce a child. I mean, there are jokes in various parts of Scotland about the church doors being quite wide, and that's so that when there were weddings there was plenty of room for the bride to get through. And you know, I think it's a very sensible idea if you're living in an economy that depends on having people around in the countryside to help in the fields and so on.
He wanted something. Adventure. Canada. It was me said no. Oh, I wouldn't go. All these fields are my calf grunt. Langregs, Black Shields, Billy's Law. The fields, the river, the moor way up yonder with the long sign regs. Oh, he loved the land. Her. But maybe I loved her more when it came to the bit. When it came to Greenock, where even there the land seemed foreign. Oh, and the sea, and the ships. Oh, a sad, sad place. A great crush of folk, all quiet, and a Highland lass singing. And then a voice cried out loud again, "Hands up for Canada! Hands up for Canada!" And a rushing like wings, all the hands held high. And the babby screamed like she'd never grat before. Oh, such a stab in my heart. It made the milk spurt from me. I couldn't stay forward. I couldn't go on. And Petey couldn't stay. He crossed the ocean, and I called for the carter to take us back home. Petey Webster. I think about him every day. many times, every day.
I always remember once I went to visit this friend of mine quite early in the morning, and she was still dressing her child in front of the fire, and she was putting a jersey or something on the kid, and she said, "Hands up for Canada," and the kid held up her hands. And I never heard that phrase used before. And I asked her about it, and she said, "Well, my folk come from the West, and that's always been said in our family, because when family members were emigrating to Canada long ago, that's what they shouted out on the quay for the boat. Hands up for Canada. This boat's going to Canada. This is the boat you get on." And I nearly cried on the spot. I found it so moving. I'd never forgotten it. If I was a poet, I would have gone away and written a poem about that. That's what I thought at the time, you know.
14 years. He'll have bairns of his own now.
Well, I hope so, surely. He was made for happiness, Patty.
Well, you've made your bed, you must lie on it.
I've no leisure for my bed.
A cotter wife's bound to be hard rocked.
Day and way.
A Kirkwedding would have bound you both. You have to bring them to account. Andrew wouldn't ask me. He wouldn't. He was never going to ask. So when he was standing with a crowd of the lads, I flew to his neck and measured him for the sark, his wedding sark. Once word got round that I was sewing him the sark, well, he'd no choice. He had to call the band, so... And not afore time either.